episode 10 of Talk That Talk with Fallon and DLab. And this week, we're going to take it back old school with just the two of us again and just chat it up and talk about some of the things that have been happening in sports this week. Sports has turned into politics. So some interesting topics we have to start with. But before we really get started and dive into these topics, really just want to give our condolences to an icon that we lost is just a short time, Chadwick Boseman, who passed away yesterday and lost his battle with colon cancer at the young age of 43.
Has been a terrible year, man, an awful year. So many deaths, so much sadness. Great guy. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's a sad year, man.
Yeah, like we say it all the time. You start out with, we lost Kobe in January, and that was with a bang, like with a vengeance. I'm repping him today with the shirt, always repping Kobe Bryant, my favorite Laker.
Yeah,
All-Star game, some Hall of Famers all up in this shirt. Shout out to you for making it. D_lab work, great job with this one. I love it. But a true icon in such a short time and the roles he had, over the last few years, and he was acting in these roles while he was still fighting cancer, which is like remarkable.
Who would have ever guessed that? I mean,
no one would have. I know.
He was phenomenal in these roles to be going through what he was going through.
Right. We got King T'Challa, Black Panther. He showed a first Black superhero that kids got to see, which is just awesome. I mean, we haven't seen that in our lifetime. And here we are in 2018, just seeing our first Black superhero in a way. And other roles like Jackie Robinson in 42. And then, of course, playing Thurgood Marshall in Marshall. So some spectacular roles that he was meant to play, but he will be deeply missed. And we give our condolences to his friends and family.
The amazing thing about him is it seems like he was intentional about playing roles that were Black, powerful people, almost like he was giving that to our culture.
Right.
Obviously, he's a talented actor. He could have gone a number of ways. And I'm sure he had a number of different roles that he selected from. But to choose the particular roles that he chose, I think were more impactful. And again, much appreciation and love for him from the Black community and hopefully everyone in general. He will be sorely missed.
Yeah. And just to hit on piggybacking, but I just thought I was just watching a clip on Instagram of someone talking, or his idol being Denzel Washington. And when he was at Howard University, it was one summer where he wasn't going to be able to pay his fees to take his classes for the summer, and then
he was going to go to. Well, he actually got accepted to Oxford, and he was going to Oxford, and he couldn't pay to go to Oxford.
Okay, well, just the story, I started just hearing it, but whatever the tuition was for that summer, he couldn't pay it, and out of nowhere, someone does, and he finds out it's Denzel Washington.
Yeah, well, for Felicia Rashad, she's the one who was the mediator. She was his professor, and she kind of like did it behind the scenes as a ghost person, and he never had any idea. And the way he finds out is he's about to receive the award. He's talking to Denzel and he's telling Denzel the story. And Denzel says, yeah, I know. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm here to collect my money. Obviously in a playful, joyful way. But that's how he actually found out that Denzel was the guy who paid for him. And just another small thing about Denzel. He also, I don't know if you know this, Omari Hardwick, who's from Atlanta, actually from Decatur. He took Omari Hardwick in his home and talking about Denzel Washington. And helped him get through school as well, and kind of helped him along his acting path. So, a lot of people talk about Denzel, the actor, which obviously he's phenomenal. To me, he's, as good as it gets. Shout out to Sidney Poitier. Got to give him his credit for the first Black guy who kind of crossed over and was the main Black actor. But then to me, up under that is Denzel. And for him to kind of take these guys under his wing and do stuff for them that, people don't even hear about it. He doesn't even broadcast or put on Instagram, put on Twitter. He's just trying to take care of the Black community and bring guys up. I think it's phenomenal to him. We got to give him his flowers while he's here.
Well, yeah, I thought Denzel, what he said, and just when he was being interviewed about that, it was like a relay. He said you had Sidney Poitier who started it off. It was like the first leg of the 4x4, and then he feels like he's the third leg. He's passing the baton to a lot of these young Black actors that are just pushing forward. And Chadwick Boseman was one of them. So, like I said, he will be deeply missed. But we want to also pay homage and pay our respects to Cliff Robinson. And many of these young people may not remember Cliff Robinson. He had an 18-year NBA career, outstanding career. 6'11", forward who could play outside and in. But I just remember the first time I really saw him play was the '92 finals when they played the Bulls, when he was with the Portland Trailblazers. And I was just like, man, this guy. That team was awesome. Some true Hall of Famers, but he will be missed as well. 2020 has been a hard pill to swallow between the social climate and everything we continue to go through. We're losing some heroes. So we want to pay respects to the people we've lost. And, hopefully 2020 will have a turnaround at some point. We just got to stay positive and optimistic.
I'm just trying to get through the year and move on to 2021. I can't wait till this year is over with.
A lot of people want to trade this year and just step forward to 2021. But we just got to continue to push through. But moving on, just on topic, let's start talking about, some sports. What's been going on? The NFL is shortly about to start their season around that second weekend in September. And, with this climate right now, this racial climate, we've had a lot of, players in professional sports really taking a stance and using their platform for activism. But we haven't really seen as much in the NFL besides Colin Kaepernick, of course. But you're starting to see the transition, especially after Jacob Blake's shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where he was shot 7 times in the back for what they're saying he may have been trying to reach for a knife that was on the floorboard of his driver's side of his vehicle.
Has that been confirmed though? Because I just keep hearing these stories. Like, was there or was there not a knife? Like, we don't even know if he's reaching for it or not. Was it there? That's the first thing
I heard. There was a knife in the car. That's just reports of articles I've read. So
okay, but like not like a police document that says there was a knife in there.
I mean, I hadn't seen a police report or anything, but that's what they're saying.
But what I'm saying is, I know you haven't seen one, but like. And I don't understand this. This is something that a layperson needs to ask a lawyer. So at some point, do the police have to provide that to the local and national news people? Not the whole report, but just those kind of facts that are important.
Well, the whole report is open records.
Okay,
so you can't redact.
Why do we not know? Is what I'm trying to say.
Like,
why do we not know if there was a knife in there? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, all I can say is just reports we've heard. So you hope that news outlets are reporting the facts, depending on what you're reading. Okay. But most news outlets I've seen, the report is that allegedly, we always speak in those terms, especially being a criminal defense lawyer, but allegedly a knife was on the floorboard. But who's to know if he was reaching for it to try and use it or if it was just on his floorboard? But my thing is, when you watch that video, there were so many opportunities where they could have stopped.
Couldn't they have just detained him prior to him even getting to the car?
And then it's stuff, you hear reports.
And then why do you shoot him 7 times? That's what I don't understand.
They claim they tried to tase him, but I don't see any reports on that either. This story is ongoing and developing, but I just think it's just anytime you shoot somebody in the back, that's a problem.
7 times though. Yes, that's the most confusing of the whole thing.
But even shooting someone, in my opinion, once in the back, if they're not a threat, I mean, you see that he's at a point where he's on the opposite side of his vehicle, like on a sidewalk, and then proceeds to walk where it's at least 4 or 5 officers following him. And then they grab his shirt, which he keeps progressing to his car, gets there. And then as soon as he gets in the car, they shoot him in the back. Like, it shouldn't have gotten that far. And, police officers are only supposed to use deadly force when that type of force is being used against them. But you have to make a strong argument if someone's walking away from you, and it goes, I think, similarly to the Rayshard Brooks shooting.
He was running away in the whole other direction.
Right. And that's the defense
for a non-violent crime at that.
Right. The defense that, Garrett Rolfe's attorneys are going to make, that he was a threat because he had that taser and it's a photo of him trying to deploy it or turning his back while he's running away. But at the same time, if someone's running away, it seems to me that it needs to be common sense that you may need to let them go, because then it's coming to the point now where you're seeing that deadly force is being used and either people's lives are being taken away, or in the case of Jacob Blake, he's paralyzed from the waist down. They don't know if he'll ever walk again.
Well, I could be completely wrong, but with the Rayshard case, to me, crime, I think is important. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you treat every situation the same. I'm not a policeman. I don't know what they teach them, what they don't teach them. But to me, a non-violent crime versus a violent crime should be treated differently. That's the first thing. Right. Second thing is, apparently they're only, and I'm not 100% sure, but all reports I've seen, you can only shoot the taser twice. It had already been shot at him one time, and then he shot it the second time. It didn't connect on the second one. So now in your mind, it's been shot twice. He can't shoot us anymore.
Right.
That's what I mean, and I could be wrong again, but that's what I'm thinking. So now he's running away. The crime he committed was he might be a little tipsy and he's in his car asleep. So why are we shooting him? I just don't understand that. And then the crazy thing to me is you see these videos, and this is going to be a little controversial. And I hate to bring this to the show, Fallon, but I think it's people. This is the conversations I have when I'm not on the show. So I think we need to talk about it. You see these videos of white guys fighting police back, cursing them out, taking their weapons, stealing their cars, driving crazy at them, and they don't get shot. So the confusion to me is when they do that, that seems more violent and more detrimental to the police's livelihoods. Why don't those people get shot? And I don't want anybody to get shot. So I want to make sure everybody's I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I don't want anybody to get shot in these situations. But why are black people getting shot in situations that don't seem as violent than when white people do the similar type things and sometimes even more aggressive things?
I really think, if you do the numbers, because the white population is much larger than the black population in this country, but you'll have people who will come back at you and say, well, you support white people being arrested than black people. Okay, so let's not look at those statistics. But you're right. We're seeing more black individuals get shot by police or having to be victims of police brutality than we're seeing white people.
When the percentages of black people being arrested or in these situations is much smaller because it's less of us. Okay.
Right. So even when you look at the situation with the kid, the 17-year-old in Kenosha, who shot the protesters. And
to me, this is by the way, I can't wait to talk about this when you get done. This is the worst of all of them to me, but go ahead.
Yeah, in this situation, and you can see like defense attorneys are already trying to help build that case of why he may have had a defense. As a 17-year-old, he had an AR-15, which is illegal in that state for him to possess it. But the fear of a threat coming at him with protesters seeing him with this AR-15 and them approaching or trying to get the gun away from him, that he had a right to shoot.
That's going to be their argument?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's going to be one of their defenses that I've already seen commentators or legal analysts on these news outlets speak of. So when you see like even the portrayal, like it was a photograph I saw that, this kid was cleaning graffiti off of walls the morning before the protest or before he killed the two protesters. And then like if you see the likes of fallen individuals who've been killed due to police brutality or just gun violence from vigilantes who want to protect their neighborhoods, going back to Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, as soon as that case became a hot topic, one of the headlines you see is Trayvon Martin autopsy report shows that he had marijuana in his system.
Oh, they attack their character every time.
Yeah, they do. And it's the same thing we're seeing with Jacob Blake. I mean, I want to, go back to Brian Urlacher's comments this week, which I think were totally insensitive. And then just to relate to the fact that he has a black son. So you would think maybe he would get it and understand the outcry, but he is a Trump supporter. And he basically was saying something to the likes of Brett Favre played in a Monday Night Football game after his father had passed away, which was heroic, and threw for 4 touchdowns in the first half. And he was able to, get through adversity and play in that game. And he couldn't believe that NBA players would boycott or protest and not play games because of Jacob Blake's shooting 7 times in his back.
I don't see the correlation.
The speculation that he had a possible warrant that we haven't confirmed. I think outlets are saying that it was a warrant, but we don't know if police actually knew about that warrant when they shot him 7 times in the back. So we don't even know if they were trying to make an arrest because of the warrant. And basically that the players had no right because he may have had a sexual assault warrant. So why do you even care about police shooting that guy? And it's the same bad narratives that victims get. Mm-hmm. And, I would say even watching this week, I watched the RNC and, I like to pay attention and listen to both sides.
How you watch that?
Because you have to. I mean, if we're out here and we're on this platform preaching to people to be informed and just really know the candidates that are running so they can make an informed decision for themselves, no matter what your party affiliation is. I may not agree with it, but I want to be informed. And, not one time, it was to the point where I believe it was Ben Carson who was basically giving his thoughts and prayers were with the Blake family. I'm like, why are they with the Blake family when Jacob Blake is still alive? They should be with Jacob Blake. And even to the point where his father talks about walking into the hospital room and seeing his hand handcuffed to a hospital bed. He was being criminalized, and he was the victim, shot 7 times in his back. Regardless, he was not doing anything to the point that he should have been a criminal or criminalized in that picture. So you see how the headlines try and play it. You know, we're very divisive right now between the Democratic and Republican Party of how they feel about police officers and police brutality versus, you know, the outcry of Black Lives Matter. And it becomes this circular argument to where BLM, it may be considered a terroristic organization. I hate seeing that. But they act like if you use the phrase Black Lives Matter, that you must be associated with the organization. And for a lot of people who are advocating against police brutality or, you know, social injustice issues, that's not the point. To me, if you can't say or simply say the words Black Lives Matter, then what are we doing here? So that's my take on that.
A couple things. First thing is you said something that I think is very interesting / controversial, that we should try to, that hopefully we can believe the media outlets. Mm-hmm. And from the way we start from the top down now with our administration on down, right. I don't know if you can believe anything the media says, because everything the media says is to try to skew a narrative and control a narrative and to get people to believe one thing or the other. And in this particular case, they want you to believe that Jacob had did something wrong and that he was trying to do something even worse so that the police did something right. So unfortunately, until I see with my own eyes that there was a knife in that truck and that he could have possibly, because if there was a knife in the car, the other thing is, was it in the direction where he reached?
Right, right.
Because he walked slowly around the car from my view, from my vantage point, slowly around the car and looked very calm and collective for someone who's going in to reach a knife and trying to stab a police person.
Right.
I think that would be an aggressive move. You would have a different demeanor, a different attitude, a different swag about you as you're going. I could be wrong. I wouldn't stab a policeman anyway, but if I was going to, I think I would be aggressive.
Right.
His kids are in the car. So I don't think that he wants to do anything aggressive with his kids in the car to get retaliation that could possibly hurt his kids. That's the second thought I have. So I'm a little confused on why he would be doing any of this stuff anyway. Why are we throwing out that he has a sexual warrant? Is that true? Is that not true? If it's not true, it definitely shouldn't be said. It's ridiculous to say it if it's not true, because now people have heard it so many times that it's almost like perception is reality. So people believe it anyway.
But so why are they saying it? Even if he does or did have a sexual assault warrant, it's not deserving of being shot in the back.
It's not. But what it does is, for the people who are okay with this happening over and over and over again, it gives them a reason to say he's a bad person anyway. So like, stop trying to protect all these bad people. The police are just doing their job. So that's all it is another seed to plant in the head of people that think that these type of things should happen. As far as Urlacher goes, Urlacher's comment, to me, there's no correlation between Brett Favre's dad passing away for non-violent reasons. He just passed away of, I can't even remember if it was sickness or age, whatever it was something that was expected.
Natural causes.
Knew it. Natural causes. He expected it. His dad probably was this huge football fan of his and would have wanted him to play. So obviously he's going to play for his father. This is a totally different situation. And this is, the NBA players didn't boycott the game because of the situation in Wisconsin. They boycotted the game because this is happening over and over and over again. Like all the time, it's happening too much. It's not for one situation. It's a culmination of things. And the Milwaukee Bucks are representatives of that state. So it makes complete sense. So what is Urlacher talking about? Like they did the exact right thing. And I hear even people I respect tell me that Milwaukee didn't handle it correctly. There's no playbook on how to handle this. People are getting shot in the streets over and over and over again. They debated on if they should even go there. Now they're in the bubble and they don't know proper channels. They shouldn't have to say, let's speak to the Orlando Magic. Let's tell the NBPA first. Let's figure out what we're going to ask for. That's what everybody's like. People I respect and trust, and I've argued with them. Like, it's no way that's what you're thinking during that moment. You're just thinking, guys, you're in the locker room with your your teammates, your brothers, and you're saying this is happening over and over again, guys, and this one happened a little too close to home. Should we play or should we not play? And that's a conversation that happens amongst 15 guys. They probably didn't even bring the coaches in on this. The coaches probably didn't even know exactly what was going on. So at the end, to me, the end result was the right thing happened. They didn't play. It drew national attention. It went across sports. So now everybody kind of is on notice that just because we're back playing and we're a little distracted now doesn't mean that we're not paying attention, that we don't see this, and that we don't want things to happen. And I think the biggest part of this is now the NFL, which is the biggest money-making sport, their owners, their leadership sees that now the players, if these things keep happening, maybe our players won't play. And you know how much money will be lost if if a whole day of football is lost? So what's going to happen now? The owners are going to put more money into Black Lives Matter thing. They're going to, their conversations with the people in legislation go a lot better than our conversations with the people in legislation go. They're going to make sure that these things don't happen, at least during football season, to make sure that whole day of football is not lost. So I think that was a very powerful thing by the Bucks, and I think it's going to change a lot, I hope.
Yeah, and we gonna get back into that, but just continuing with the NFL, like this past week, you saw individual players or at training camp, like the Saints. I think they wore Jacob Blake on their helmets at practice all week to support and just show unity. I think you had the Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback for the Titans, stepping up and standing in solidarity with his Black teammates. Like Black Lives Matter, and we got to stop this. We can't continuously just see Black people being killed by the hands of police. And I think that's just a critical point, and just trying to stand in solidarity. These professional athletes, they have a tremendous platform, and it's going to be critical and needs to be strategic how they use it. But just continuing, to address the issues or discuss it is very important, because you don't want it to die down and people to forget about it. Because like we said, it was moments where we thought it was getting a little stagnant or a little hush-hush. The protests we were thinking weren't occurring as much as they were after George Floyd got murdered. But, you're still seeing, people, the likes of the protest in Louisville, Kentucky. They're still waiting for an arrest or charges to be issued against those police officers in Breonna Taylor's murder or killing. So it's going to be important to see what happens. But the NFL, since this has happened, they started their own initiatives, like trying to focus on education, economic advancement, community police relations, and criminal justice reform. And we mentioned this before, but they intend over the next 10 years, are they committing $250 million to these initiatives so they can help support minority communities and hopefully affect change. But, I think what's even critical, the first game of the season this season, September 10th, is between the Chiefs and the Texans. And, with the Chiefs, the starting quarterback, we have a Black quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, who won the MVP 2 seasons ago and was a Super Bowl MVP last season. And then we have Deshaun Jackson, who is an amazing quarterback too, and a future MVP, Deshaun Watson. So it's going to be critical just to see how that game is. But what do you think? Do you think the NFL is trying to focus on Black athletes this season by having that be in the first game to start the NFL season this season? Well,
obviously, they're trying to do a lot now because it's too little too late. And now they've kind of embarrassed themselves with how they handled the Colin Kaepernick situation. So they're going overboard to try to say that we're doing as much as the NBA. Really, the WNBA to me is the top. Right. They've always been about the issues.
They're unified as a league. No one is going against it.
Always. The NBA is second to me.
Yeah.
The NFL is super down the list. So they're trying to make their way up, and they're trying to go over the top to do a lot of things to try to get Black viewers. Because I know a lot of people that have stopped watching NFL, even people who really played football in high school, played football in college. But because of how they handled the Kaepernick situation, and especially now that we're in the middle of football, which we'll see, a lot of people talk, but when it happens, we'll see what really happens. So they're trying to make sure that doesn't happen, because more than anything, they want to make sure that they make money.
Right.
The NFL is all about making money. They don't know how many fans are going to be in the seats this year because of COVID-19. So they need viewership to be high, so advertisement can be high, so they can make revenue, jersey sales, et cetera, so they can make money. And Pat Mahomes is really good. Deshaun Watson is really good. That doesn't hurt either.
Yeah.
So they're the face of the league right now. So you want to kind of put those guys in the forefront anyway to bring in excitement and draw attention to the NFL as well. Because the other thing we don't know is how many football games we'll play this year.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? They played high school last night. I don't know if you saw it on ESPN. Alabama had a game. Then Utah had a game. And to be honest, I was shocked at how many people were there. It is outdoors, but I don't know. It seemed like a lot of people to me.
Well, yeah, it's like the RNC the other night when President Trump was giving his speech.
But
it was filled with 1,300
like
people. They were close together. It's like they act like COVID-19 has disappeared.
But that's their narrative that they've been pushing. So it makes sense to them like that. And that also could be staged. We don't know if those people were paid to be there or, they're different to me than football people who actually had a choice whether to go or not go. It wasn't as publicized. Like that was the narrative of the RNC. So I expect them to do that. I mean, they've been talking this whole time about how we don't need masks and everything is fine. Let's not test. The numbers would be lower if we don't test, which is the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. Because if you don't test, then you won't know who has it. And then the numbers actually get bigger because those people are out spreading it.
You can't trace.
And they don't even know the quarantine because they don't know if they have it. So not testing doesn't make the numbers lower. It actually can make things worse.
Right.
Which is why all the other countries figured out early to do mass testing, wear masks, a 2-week ban on going anywhere. And those countries are doing fine and we're not. But again, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, back to football. Like I do think they're trying to go over the top. And I do think they're putting those guys on a pedestal because they're the best players, but also to try to get back some of the viewership from people that left because of the Kaepernick situation.
Right. And like you said, I think it's critical, a lot of the Black viewership, because those are the ones who are really in protest. Mm-hmm. We had Gerald Griggs on here for episode 8, and he said he's been protesting the NFL for 3 years, really since they blackballed Kaepernick for his actions of taking a knee. So, it's going to be interesting to see if they even have a season. You made a good point. COVID-19 has not gone away. It's still here and it's prevalent. And it's too many players. We talked about that. They can't try to create a bubble for NFL teams like they did for the NBA because it's too many players. So I think they're going to just take the mindset of Major League Baseball a bit and postpone games if people get COVID or if it's an outbreak, and reschedule those games so people can quarantine. But it's just going to stretch the season out further. I'm just surprised they didn't shorten the season a bit, minimize the number of games they play this season so they could
money.
Yeah, it is money. But, I think the majority of that money, like you want to see these teams play. But I think when it's playoff time, Super Bowl, you want to ensure that you have those games because that's what's going to really bring you the big money. But who knows? We'll see what happens. And this is going to be a slow progression. But you're starting to see NFL players starting to get it and try and have a little bit more of a voice and speaking up like we see in the likes of the WNBA and the NBA. So we'll just continue to watch that narrative. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. But just moving on, like we know this week was big. We had the NBA boycott and protests, and that happened on Wednesday this past week on the 26th. Like you said earlier, the Milwaukee Bucks decide that they're going to stand in solidarity as a team, and they did not come out on the court for their game at 1:00 on Wednesday against the Orlando Magic.
Yep.
And then the next thing you see is they have a press conference with the likes of George Hill and Sterling Brown, who has been a victim of police brutality. An incident that I think is still ongoing where he was arrested and charged, I believe, with obstruction or something of the like. To say like the police were investigating basically nothing and just arrested and charged him, and it turned into something more than it needed to be.
And they didn't know he was the NBA player, or he wouldn't have been treated.
Oh, of course. No, they thought he was just a black man,
exactly.
And that's sad
Another
to say.
Chicago kid.
Right. That's sad to say that you have to be a professional athlete for police officers to just not bother you. You have to be famous, and that's sad because we all aren't famous, and we're not the norm to be who are in those situations. We have to deal with the police on a daily basis. But they spoke up just about being sick and tired. They decided to go to the bubble to continue the NBA season. have a playoff. And then, the NBA decided they wanted to use their platform to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter by putting it on the court, which we know is some white owners in the NBA, just like in the NFL, that probably didn't agree with that and thought it was probably very one-sided, that if you were trying to say you're unified, you shouldn't put that on the court. It's that whole mantra or belief that all lives matter. We shouldn't just single one group of people, which I think is obnoxious if you don't get the true meaning of what Black Lives Matters. We're just trying to acknowledge that, Black people are the ones that have been oppressed for centuries and are still going through this in this day and age when we're supposed to be living in a democracy. But it was a trickle effect. And then the likes of games that were to follow, you had OKC and Houston. They were supposed to play. Chris Paul is the president of the Players Union. And
very outspoken.
Very outspoken.
Great job representing the HBCUs, wearing a different pair of shoes for HBCU every game, which I think has drawn attention to some schools and hopefully helps them with, people just knowledge of those schools, and also maybe, people deciding to go to those schools, which can help them financially.
Yeah, I agree. And then the Lakers and Trailblazers, they basically boycott as well. And then you just see the entire bubble. They're on a boycott. Players, referees, all of it, no games. But then I think it was some controversy because when it happened, I'm going to be honest, I've enjoyed the playoffs since they started back. We had no sports. The NBA has done a great job with these games, made it very entertaining to where you actually feel the playoff atmosphere. The games have been very good.
Yeah.
But then I got it this is a huge moment. They have a huge platform. And if they decide to boycott the remainder of the playoffs, that could be so significant to force these Black owners to understand that they will lose money if these athletes do not play.
These white owners.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Because there's very few Black owners in the NBA. The only one I really know is Michael Jordan right now.
That's the only one. We could be wrong, but that's the only one I'm familiar with as well.
And not everybody's Michael Jordan. So think about what you got to be to become a Black owner in the NBA, right?
Exactly.
But then to put them in front or have a seat with the politicians to force the issue to make change. Because at the end of the day, politicians know those billionaires are the ones that are their donors, give them money to run their campaigns, to get legislation. Right. So if you have people of power doing that, what we've been saying during this movement the whole time, that it can't just be us. We need people in the majority who have the power and money to step up and to try and get legislation passed that's going to benefit the Black community or the minority community moving forward. And just put an end to systematic racism.
Yeah.
But then they take a turn and decide less than 24 hours later after meetings that they're going to continue the season. And I kind of felt some type of way about that at first. But then once I read and found more information, because I was thinking, I hope they didn't end this boycott by not getting something, by not meeting with these owners and having a discussion and saying, this is what we want and this is what we need if you want us to continue to play. And they did establish a couple of things. They decided, or three things. They're going to establish a social justice coalition featuring players, coaches, and governors within the NBA. And they're going to convert team arenas into voting locations for the 2020 general election, which we know LeBron James has been advocating for, of just people really exercising their right to vote and trying to put an end to voter suppression, especially for this election since it's so important. And create advertising spots in playoff games that promote civic engagement in local and national elections, which I think is key because when you really watch an NBA game or you watching it on TNT, ESPN, ABC, you don't really see any political ad campaigns or anything dealing with the political process during the games. And I didn't even realize that. But I think it's a good step in the right direction because I was going to be critical at first, but then I had to take a step back and just see it for what it really is. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the NBA handles that. But I do applaud them for taking a stance because it was an eruption to all the sports that day. You had the Milwaukee Brewers, Cincinnati Reds, MLB players stepping up and standing up and basically boycotting. They said they weren't playing either. And of course the WNBA, they're about it. They're about it. So they were like, we ain't playing either. If y'all aren't, we've been saying it. And they had the gall or the courage, I thought was amazing. They come to games on Wednesday with shirts with the number 7, I believe, on the front, or his name, Jacob Blake, and then 7 bullet holes on the back with blood. I was like, wow, if that's not powerful and speaking up, then I don't know what is. But what do you think about this whole trend that happened this week in the NBA? It just really shook the sports world.
Well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. So, for personal reasons, I'm glad that the NBA is back. That's just selfish reasons. Looking forward to watching the games, and seeing what happens in the playoffs, and watching the Clippers win the championship. So, but
leg show.
But besides that, I really wish they would not have played in the first place, because, like I thought was going to happen, as soon as sports came back, along with jobs in school. So I don't want to just blame sports. Along with more professions starting to go back to the office and kids in school, I think that we have now become distracted again. So with these murders, with this Jacob situation in Wisconsin have happened, I'm not sure, to be honest. If we were still having as many protests as we were having, which were happening all over the country, almost on a daily basis, which put the police on notice and had them conscious of their decisions, I'm not sure this would have happened. Now, it might have, I guess hindsight is always 20/20. But when we went back to things kind of status quo, now we're starting to find more and more situations happening over and over and over again. And to me, sports is the biggest distraction that we have. It's at the forefront because our culture is based on watching sports as a pastime, as well as a world that me and you probably are not in, but it's a huge world, betting and gambling. It's a huge world, and it's based around sports.
Right.
So that has become something that people have gotten to start to do. And then, I mean, Atlanta, which is one of the hotbeds, like we had Gerald Griggs on here, one of the hotbeds for protesting. I mean, I don't remember the last time I heard of a protest happening in the city. We were burning down Wendy's just a month ago.
Yeah.
Like literally burning the Wendy's down, literally burning the Wendy's down, tearing the CNN Center up, stuff that I didn't agree with, but it had everybody on notice, and we had everybody's attention. The police had started boycotting. They weren't even coming out no more.
Right.
they were like, whatever. If y'all got a crime, don't even call us. We don't even care. We ain't coming out. Y'all don't want us to do anything, then we won't do anything.
Right.
So they went from one end of the spectrum to the whole other end of the spectrum. But then we went back to normal, and now all of a sudden we got the same thing happening again. So if we go back, if they went back to playing and they didn't protest, I think it would have been a crazy message for the Milwaukee Bucks to play that night like nothing happened in their town, in their state. It would have been crazy for them to just play business as usual. And I thought George Hill saying, I wish he was Giannis, but Giannis is from Greece. So I know he feels this, but he's from Greece. So like it's different. Like it hits different for people that's from here. So for George Hill to say, man, we shouldn't even have came here.
He did.
That was the most powerful thing that everybody talks about, like these other guys don't have a voice. Like everybody want to listen to LeBron. Chris Paul has a big voice because he's a name, but for George Hill to get on that microphone and say, we shouldn't even have came here, I think he's speaking for more people than people recognize. A lot of people felt like that. They were pressured by some of the bigger names to play because they said that this is how we're going to get our money. You got to feed your family, versus their own initial thoughts of, and that's why I respect Avery Bradley to the fullest. Obviously he had the situation with his child, but he also spoke out on what's going on with the Black Lives Matter stuff. And he thought this was going to be a distraction and we needed to focus on that. So I respect the guys who made those decisions. And like you said, it started an uproar throughout sports. People in every sport started. And so let's say you're not a basketball fan, which I don't know if you've read the articles, but a lot of people are on the other side, total different thinkers than ours, are saying that we're going to stop watching basketball. You guys are just athletes. Y'all are just entertainment. Stop trying to speak out. Stop trying to talk about stuff y'all don't know about. We'll just not watch, and y'all will not make money, which is crazy because I don't believe that's going to happen at all. But that's what they're saying. But those same people do watch baseball. They do watch hockey, are maybe not as impactful, and their stars aren't as big. I think that for baseball and hockey to start speaking out and boycotting stuff, was probably more impactful than basketball, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because the other side, those are their sports that they follow and watch. So they're not gonna avoid listening to them. They're not gonna lose their love or admiration for them because that's what they've been following. That's their natural sport, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know what you think about that, but I thought that was a huge thing.
Well, I mean, the viewership has been incredible for the NBA since the bubble started. So, you know, I know the likes of Donald Trump, and they're not paying attention when asked about the protest or the boycott by the NBA, and they tried to make it seem like it's irrelevant, or they had not been paying attention.
Because it doesn't push his narrative.
No, but one thing the president did say was, I heard the ratings are bad. So you have been paying attention.
Exactly.
You listen to the
ratings. Which is not true anyway.
Which is not true. You know, the ratings have been incredible.
And there we go, talking about the news outlets and the media outlets. Look at, he's saying that the rates are bad. He just makes it up. He just talks. He just lies. It's crazy.
But, you know, like you said, with this platform, you're right. I think in other arenas where, you know, the viewership may be predominantly white, it could have more of an effect by seeing Black Lives Matter or players wearing those shirts or speaking at press conferences after games about
and I don't only mean white people.
Well, no.
I don't know how much conversation you've had. I've had a bunch of conversations with Black people who believe in the Trump administration and talk negatively about the Obama administration. So I'm talking about all of those thinkers, whatever their race, gender thoughts are. Like, all of them think differently and have different things that they like. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, from both sides. You're right about that. It's not really black, white. You know, I've heard mixed reviews from different races of just people just telling me their beliefs and how they may not agree with one side and really agree with the other. But the fact of the matter is, this is something that we need professional athletes to bring attention to. But I do want to say this, which made me realize it after they decided to resume play, is that we cannot put everything on the shoulders of professional athletes for change to happen, right?
No question.
They're, you know, put on a pedestal because they're great at the sport, but being in politics or being advocates, that's not their job. And you respect the fact when they are willing to speak out and speak on these issues or put their money towards it, but we can't just say that they're the ones that we have to hold to a high standard to fix the problem for us. They're just a small portion that can help because they're at least in a position and have the platform where they're connected with these owners who are in the majority, who are billionaires, or just people in general that they can get in the faces of politicians to where politicians may actually listen to them. But we have to do our part too. And that's what's big. That's why I think voting is so important. No matter who you vote for, you better participate or you shouldn't say anything at all. So we're going to continue to see how this progresses. But I just thought it was interesting this week. It really shook up just sports around the world. It's really like an earthquake hit us this week. I mean, we can't say that enough. We've already said how bad 2020
another earthquake,
is.
Not an earthquake,
another earthquake. You know, you have this boycott, or, you know, a week ago, you see, you know, Jacob Blake get shot. Something that's another emphatic police brutality incident that catches our attention because it's on video. And then, you know, you see how this affects the likes of Doc Rivers speaking out, which I thought his speech was tremendous. And just saying, and people had a real problem of saying that this country does not love us, you know, in the Black community. And I think you have to understand that when we see this and we've been going through it for centuries and years, you feel that way.
It's hard, man.
It's hard not to feel that way.
You just don't feel respected. Anybody in any path of life, just all they want to do is be respected and loved. That's all they want to do.
Right. And that's what I think we all deserve. If we live in a true democracy where we have all these freedoms based on the Constitution, and this is supposed to be the greatest country in the world, then we should exemplify that. And we haven't been. And then the likes of even Chris Paul, you know, he said he could relate with Jacob Blake's father. They spoke, you know, his father went to, I think, Winston-Salem State. But they had a conversation. And he's like, his father is just an everyday Black man, educated Black man. And when you see this happening to his son, and I think it makes it real for these NBA players to say all the money in the world, but all the money in the world doesn't mean that if my son or daughter goes out on the streets and they're in an altercation or a situation where they're dealing with police, that they may not come home. Robert Horry, he was on a show, and he was in tears because he has two sons, 21 and 20, I believe. And he just says, at the end of the day, I just want you home, no matter what you have to do. And I think that's been the mentality in the Black community and dealing with police, or just Black men in general, that you're taught these rules. Like, you don't turn your back, you keep your hands at, 10 and 2 on the steering wheel if you get stopped by police, and you listen to every command they give you and you obey. So you can walk away and you can come home. But, me knowing the law, I was like, in the mentality, and sometimes I could just, it just drives me, and it just makes me so upset that if the police have no legitimate reason to stop you, you don't have to do that. You can walk away, If
you're a Black man, you do.
You see, but it's been in our culture. That's how we were taught. Even my grandmother used to tell me that, driving in a car, if it was a police behind you, she's like, don't you look back, you look forward. Exactly. I'd be like, what's that mean? Like, if I look back at the police, what they gonna do? And that's me being a kid. She's like, don't look back. They gonna stop us. And I'm like, wow, Grandma, I didn't get it then, but I definitely get it now.
I've always felt like that. That was something, I don't even know if I was told that. I've just always felt like that.
Well, see, you're a Black man. And, your encounters, even though I'm Black, they may be a little different, but they can both end up very badly for the both of us. Yeah. But we just have to continue to be conscious and just gain as much knowledge as we can on these topics, because it's going to be important as we move forward to the November 3rd elections. And we're just going to have to continue to watch these situations and push the agenda forward with the movement. That's what I see moving forward.
Yeah, it's a tough year. All we can do is just keep making people aware of what's going on, conscious of what's going on. Make sure we vote. Make sure we hold people accountable when they get in office. Don't be afraid of being uncomfortable in conversations, because people need to know how we feel and why we feel the way we do. And just speak our mind and speak our truth. That's all we can do.
Right. Well, DLab, we want to continue the trend like we do every week, and we want to shout out a Black-owned business. And this week, the Black-owned business owner that we're going to shout out is Taibubo Ayansi. He owns Ayansi Construction, and he has been doing home renovations and building new homes for people in the Atlanta community for a while now. He played football at Georgia Tech and also graduated. But we have to continue the trend and support Black business owners that are doing great work in our communities. And if you want to see the work that Ayansi Construction is doing, you can simply go to their IG handle or his IG handle, which is simply the @ Ayansi Construction. That's spelled ANYANSI Construction. And you can go find him, look him up. If you're watching our YouTube feed, we're going to put that up for you guys so you can see and you can follow his handle. But go check him out, see the work that he's doing. He's a brother in our community that's doing great work. And like I said, we got to continue the trend, and we have to support these Black businesses, especially as they continue to do great work for us. So that's the shout out this week.
We do. Great guy, does great work. Please support all Black businesses. And then hold them accountable and make sure they do a good job. And if you are a Black business owner, make sure you do things well in a timely fashion so that we can continue to receive the support that we look for.
Yes. But this was a great one, episode 10, DLab. We're going to take a bit of a break, take a week off for the holiday next week for Labor Day. But we wanted to end the trend for episode 10 in the month of August. And I think this was another great show. We just had a great conversation, which I think we needed to have. We've been missing it the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm. It's just so much going on. We needed to talk and get some stuff off our chest, to be honest.
It is. Viewers have been telling us they've enjoyed the interviews we've had the last couple of weeks or last 3 weeks, but they were ready to hear from us. And like you said, it was some big topics that we needed to discuss for this episode. So I'm glad we got the opportunity to do so. But please check us out. Like we say every week, subscribe. Follow our platforms. Follow. We on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and our Buzzsprout, where we do our connections and where we do our show for the audio and for the podcast to be on audio so you can be heard. And it'll take you to each platform where you can listen to our podcast. So click on the links, especially in my Instagram handle. You see it right there, Future Stokey. Or you can follow the show, Talk That Talk FD on IG. So Stay tuned to the next one. We appreciate your support. Continue to listen and continue to watch.